They say, and I really thoroughly agree, that the discovery of a new dish does far more for the happiness of mankind than the discovery of a new star. Now this is genuinely a new way to braai, and I'm very, very excited to share it with you. We're going to use pork chops, but you can certainly use lamb chops if you like, and you can even use T-bone steaks if you like. Now what we've got done here is we are going to smoke the chops before we actually braai them in the conventional way. And we're smoking them with fresh herbs. So Braaied, whoever has a rosemary bush, and if you have some sage in the garden, that's fine. Failing that, you can use lemon or apple twigs, just the twigs. Failing that, you can use sawdust. But the preparation, first of all, the butcher, most important man, let him leave this bone in for you. Take off the skin and trim the fat so that you have a thin layer of fat like this, because this bone is very, very important. It'll buffer the chop against the heat. Now, just cut 2 cuts. There you are, sweetheart, just to prevent curl up. Then, generous amount, just open it nice and big, of seasoning, and drizzle with olive oil. And then this meat must please be at room temperature when you cook it. But now when we smoke it, we want the heat to circulate in amongst the chops. And for that purpose, we got somebody to make a special little stainless steel rack for us with different size spaces. If you've got thick chops, you use these spaces. If you've got thin ones, you can use that. So what you do now is you place the chop bone down, I can alternate them too, into the fat space. Now these chops are going to go on the fire to be smoked. But very important, you don't want to put them directly over the heat. So you lift the grid and you put this little old wrecked out pan directly on the coals, then you put the grid back, and then you put the chops on top of the grid with the herbs. But let me show you. Now I'd just like to show you a delicious method of toasting bread on the fire that we saw in Spain a little while ago. You just use chia butter, olive oil, take a tomato, cut it in half, and it's actually better to use a round tomato which has got more juice, and just cut a few little slits into the tomato. Come sweetie, you've got to sit still. And then you squeeze some of the juice and you rub. And that's it. You just impregnate this piece of bread with all that lovely tomato flavor. And you can also, when you've finished doing all your tomatoes, you can cut out the fleshy bit, chop that up tiny, 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 and put a bit of that over there. Now the secret. You take our cheese sprinkle, Italian cheese sprinkle, and you give this a little sprinkle of cheese on top. And then these little breads will be toasted towards the end of the cooking time of the meat. Okay. Now we've put the small little pan over the coals to protect the chops against the direct heat. Put the grid on. Put your rack on exactly on top of where the little pan is standing. And then we put the herbs over the fire. Now the lid is on, and we just need to open the vent about 1/3. so that the fire doesn't die down completely. Now we smoke it. If your fire is quite gentle, 10 minutes. If your fire is more vigorous, then about 7 minutes. Just use your common sense. But it's really important that the lid is on so that the smoke can circulate. Now, this should be smoked. Wow. Can you see what's happened? You've got that gorgeous golden smoky look. Now let's just take that off, Janet. Right, now that the chops have been smoked, now we can actually braai them. So we put them down in the conventional way. Now we decant plenty of our sticky marinade into. Now here you honestly throw it on. Don't be scared. You want to build up a layer of flavor. Just turn them round. Once again, plenty of sticky marinade and just pat it on. Wow, that looks like a proper braai. And it's just such a pity you can't smell it. The chops are, browning beautifully, and we've put the bread on, and the first side, the tomato side, is getting nicely toasted, and we can just turn it back on that side. Don't overcook the bread, just it must be crispy and toasty but not burnt. And the chops, the way to test the chops is just use your finger. As soon as the chops are feeling firm, then you know you're there. And the lollipops, they can also be turned regularly and basted. The onion must become nice and soft, not necessarily chewy. Well, these chops are perfect now. Done to perfection. Bon appetit.